Cool.
What's up, guys? Hope you're feeling alive right now. I'm Micah Keneally, and I want to welcome you to Young Adults Today podcast, where we talk about reaching young adults in our world today. And today I'm joined with my cousin, my husband, and my co-host.
If you combine, do you see what she did there?
So we're going to talk about Freud today. Very cool. Wow. That got awesome.
Co-host and husband.
Yeah, that's what I
said. Words that you want to put together. Take it away again from the top.
From the top.
I'm just kidding.
No, we got to just.
We love bloopers. Nothing is edited here. So, blah, that's my mistake today. Husband and co-host, Josiah Keneally. Josiah, how you did today? I'm glad we can laugh at myself and each other.
We're smiling. We're laughing. The interview's begun. We're having fun.
That's amazing.
How are
and
you?
I'm doing great after that little blunder. I mean, it's only up from here, right?
It's only up from here.
Well, if you're just tuning in and you've never tuned in before, we just want to welcome you into the program. We want to welcome ourselves into your earbuds, whether you're at the gym, you're on the road, whatever you're doing, wherever you're at, know that God is smiling down on you and has plans for you. And if you want to get more involved, you can surely do that by tuning in and rating, subscribing, reviewing, and sharing this podcast with any friends, family members, or anybody else you can think of. So we always want to honor our special guests. And Josiah, we have a really amazing guest today that I know you've read some of their things. Yeah. I've read some of their things. And tell the audience who in the world is with us today.
I'll do just that. And if you're listening and tuning in, it's a joy, like Micah said, to come into your world, your space, your headphones, your stereo, your commute. And if you've ever had questions about anxiety, mental health, or anxious free living, you know we're in a mini series on anxiety. And we're going to welcome, I'll introduce him in just a second, but John Delony, Dr. John Delony's on the other side of the Zoom. How are you today?
Well, good, brother. How are you?
We're doing well. Thanks for joining us.
I don't get to talk to a lot of married cousins very often, so this is cool, man. This is so good.
Dear Lord,
we're never going to get over this one, are we?
We prayed before we hit record. So, Jesus, we need your help. But Dr. John Delony, we're having fun. This is going to be a great episode. He's a best-selling author, mental health expert, and the host of the Dr. John Delony Show. He's part of the Ramsey Solutions team, one of the Dave Ramsey personalities. He has 2 PhDs and over 2 decades of experience in counseling, crisis response, and higher education. Mm-hmm. And John's goal is to help you navigate tough decisions, improve your relationships, and believe that you're worthy of being well. So Dr. John, how about this? Let's help some people today. What do you think?
Let's do it.
And can we start by just your life experience in a few sentences, maybe your high-level overview of life, leadership, family, and how, really how you got to be on the other side of this Zoom call today?
Oh, man. I guess in a nutshell, I'm married for almost 2 decades. I got 2 great kids, a couple of dogs, and some chickens, and I live out in the woods here in Nashville, and south of Nashville. And I worked with college students for the majority of my career. I've been a high school teacher and coach. And my dad was a homicide detective and a SWAT hostage negotiator, and my mom stayed at home. And then she, at 42, took her first community college class. She took 1 class and then took another one and then another one. And then she took her first community college class at 42 and graduated her PhD at 57.
Incredible.
And became a professor in her 60s. And so I've just had parents who said, go do the next right wild thing. And I had parents who, when the building was on fire, they modeled, you go into the fire and you don't run from it. And so when this opportunity came up to quit everything I knew, and as my boss said, you help thousands of people at your university. If you join this team, we can help millions. That spoke to me. And so here we are.
Incredible. And I was just at Ramsey Solutions, by the way, the new location. And
beautiful,
oh my gosh, it is really cool. And you guys have helped us as individuals before we got married, as now a married couple, and now as parents too. And so the work and ministry that you guys are doing is incredible.
Yeah, and it is reaching us, and it's reaching hopefully our listeners today, because we're going to kind of lean into anxiety and mental health and just how rampant that can run in our personal lives or in our ministries, in our workspaces, or maybe even in our family trees.
Definitely.
So learning how to rein that in. So Dr. John, I would just be curious just to hear, you wrote a book and it's called Redefining Anxiety. So can you share with the audience today and ourselves just the difference, like what is anxiety and what is it not?
So all anxiety is, and I'm somebody who's been crushed by it in the past, and that started my going down the rabbit hole to figure out what in the world is this. All anxiety is an alarm system. So think about your home. You have a smoke detector in your house. The smoke detector, unless it's malfunctioning, is almost never the problem. All anxiety is an alarm system that's letting you know that you're either disconnected from other people, you found yourself alone, you are in a situation where you're not safe, or you're in a situation where you can't control the outcome. You don't have any autonomy on what tomorrow might look like for you. And that's all it is. It's a signal. And we spent the last 25 to 50 years making anxiety the thing that we're trying to solve, instead of listening to what anxiety is trying to tell us about the lives we're trying to lead that are out of control and chaotic and just maniacal. And so that's what it is. Depression's the same way. OCD, ADHD, all those things are symptoms of it's our body actually, I think, working just as it was designed, letting us know that our ecosystems are not okay.
Wow.
I think that's really helpful to distinct that and to differentiate that from maybe what we think it is, and to really simplify it down. And I'm reminded of maybe driving in the car and the light goes on. There's triggers, there's warnings, there's things that can buzz, ring, and ding to kind of help us know. And
think about your car when you're driving and the check engine light comes on.
Right.
That's not a signal to take the dashboard off and to break that bulb out of there. That's a signal to make sure you got oil in the car, make sure you got water in there, right? So, but we have, the analogy I use is it's like going into your kitchen and getting like some random associate pastor. Our churches all have like 800 associate pastors now doing God knows what, and a counselor, and that one friend we have that's just an annoying friend that talks too much. And we climb up on a ladder in our kitchen and we figure out how to take the batteries out of the smoke detector, and we all high five each other while the house is still burning down. And we all cheer and go, cool, we solved it. And that was never the problem.
Right. That's such a good, visual that I could imagine in my mind while as you describe it, to realize, like, even when we treat the symptoms, we don't just put a Band-Aid on it, right? We have to get to the root of the problem and identify what is truly going on here. And just to understand, like, the ecosystem, like how you said that, everything that we're constantly being stimulated by, how do
our work and our media and our marriages and our relationships and our friendships and our kids and dealing with our parents and their parent, like that's the stuff that is setting these alarms up.
Absolutely.
It's incredible and powerful. And we want to dive deep, not just surface level, but into the room. And I think what will help us go there and what will help the listener just relate to you and to us as well is, would you be willing to open up and to share some of your experience with mental health? I know you had said that you got crushed by anxiety.
Oh yeah. So the short version is we could do a couple of episodes on this, but I was really fortunate. I got hired as a senior leader at a university at 26 years old. So probably 20 years too young for wisdom wise. And so I found myself the young guy in the room by a decade or more everywhere I went. And I quickly got a PhD as fast as I could so I could get that credential and I could feel like I was going to be validated. And then I was chasing X number of dollars and X number of titles. And then I found out that I was good at serving people in crisis. And so I was spending 2, 3, 4 nights, some weeks in the hospital with students and their parents. And it just became, I was on call 24/7, 365. And I was really good at what I did. And I think we often think, hey, this person's like a glory hog and this person's really grinding out and they're good. I was both of those things. I wanted to be really good at my job and I wanted people to notice and tell me that I needed that external validation too.
Right.
And I was chasing a bunch of external plugs for an internal hole. And I thought that the money and the titles and the stuff and the stuff and the stuff, and it all at the same time, man, the slightest thing, my heart rate would take off on me. I was panicked. I didn't sleep. And then that led me to over exercising and over dramatizing diet and over trying to control everything, which then that led me to less sleep and less. And suddenly I was leading everything. I was doing like, hey, Delony, will you do the Sunday school? I got it. Hey, will you help lead this college ministry? Got it. Hey, will you take this extra department? Got it. Hey, you want to go to Harvard on this one program? Got it. Suddenly I was doing 1,000 things trying to chase peace. And the whole time that my body was, there was smoke coming out of my ears. And ultimately, I never forget, I was walking to work. By this time, I was so paranoid and freaked out. I'd sold my house. I thought I had timed the next housing collapse. And I was crazy. I was like the guy on Beautiful Mind. And we often think of crazy like somebody ends up in an institution. That wasn't me. I was still getting my work done. I was still doing my stuff. I was getting harder and harder to be around. And I was always the guy taking over conversations. And my wife was starting to kind of create an alt world because I was just a third rail. I was just a lot.
Right.
And I remember I just got in a car and drove a few hours, and I happened to have a buddy who was a medical doctor. And I went in his office and I said, hey, man, I'm not okay. And that was the first day that I finally admitted to myself, something's not right. And that started, man, I moved to another college. My wife and I took a $70,000 household income pay cut to go to a new town. And I worked at another university, which had a smaller group of students I was dealing with. And that's when both of us started walking a long journey to figure out, man, what's going on in our lives and our marriage and our home. And I ended up getting a second PhD in counseling, just trying to figure out, I'm a questioner. I always want to know, and what happened to me? Right. And oh gosh, what's happening to my students and their families and our communities and our country? And that's where I ended up here. So now I can look on the other side of it, and man, peace is something I hold now. It's not something I'm chasing.
That's so good. Dr. John, thank you so much for sharing that. I think being vulnerable and being transparent to share our stories and our experiences like you just had just opens up the door of opportunity to minister to people, to be mindful of our own mental health. And when we have students or young adults or family friends who are wrestling and struggling with these things, it's important to validate what they're going through is legitimate. And there are, like the spiral that you talked about, it went from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and to be able to identify that. And I would just be curious your insight on this. And for the leader who's like learning how to prioritize their own mental health and their own health in that realm, what would you say to them today if they find themselves maybe in a similar situation or a downward spiral, or just kind of can relate to your story that you just shed some light on?
I think a couple of cornerstones here, and I'll just rattle these off the top of my head. Feel free to interrupt me. The first one is there is no such thing as an external solution to an internal hole in your heart. So there is no, and I'm telling you, I sit with multi-gajillionaires behind closed doors, people who have money that most of us could never fathom. That doesn't solve it.
Right.
To people who lead massive churches, who are college presidents, who are attorneys and doctors and whatever. There is no job title, no amount of money, no anything like that, no hit song, no elite military career that is going to make your body go, we're all good now, we arrived. There is no there. The second one is you can't force yourself to feel a certain way. You can't look in the mirror and grit your teeth and say, be happy. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So what that means is you have to have a series of practices that will, over time, let your body know that you're safe and in control. And so when I look at like this, this is a podcast that y'all two do for pastors. When I look at the life of Jesus, he had a series of practices. He walked places. He had community with him. He would take time by himself for prayer and meditation. He controlled what he could control. He slept sometimes in really weird places, right? He had a series of practices and was tethered into something bigger than himself.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
so we talk about a lot, like you hear in the Christianese, I call it like the peace of Jesus. Like I spent a decade. Okay, what does that actually mean? Like, what is that? What is that thing?
Right.
That's a dude who just falls asleep on a boat in the middle of a storm because he's not worried about nothing. You know what I
Wow.
mean? That's a guy that just says, hey, man, if they don't want to talk to you, dust your sandals off and go to the next town. You don't got to start a fight. You don't got to throw punches. That's a guy who's surrounded by people who want something from him. And he notices her tugging on his garment and he bends down and says, are you okay? And so that is peace. That's not doubting. That's not concern. So it's really what are a series of practices, and they look different for all of us.
Mhm.
And then the third thing I would tell you is that leads me to be curious about your body, not judgmental about where you're at. Don't be angry or go to war with your body. So now when I start to feel anxiousness, I smile and go, oh man, what are you trying to protect me from? Like
That's
I
good.
ask my body, like, what are you detecting that I don't see? Because I think we're doing pretty good. And it may tell me, do we need to get some sleep? Or you had 18 bags of gummy candy yesterday. That's not great. Or you and your wife haven't connected. You and me and my wife haven't connected in 2 weeks. And it's starting to sound the lonely alarms, right? Y'all have an 8-month-old, right?
8-week-old and then 18-month-old.
Eight
Yep.
week and 18-month-old, right?
Yeah.
So if your bodies aren't saying, I miss connection, I miss sleep, I miss our natural rhythm, it should be letting you know things are out of sync.
Right.
And that's when you can be at peace with, oh, my body's just doing exactly what it's designed to, which is try to keep me safe.
Wow.
But I know what we're doing here, right? And then I'm going to be
Right.
intentional about those practices. Curious, not judgmental.
Oh my
That's good.
gosh. I love that. That is so helpful. And I'm, by the way, a very regular subscriber, listener to a lot of, your podcast, a lot of the Ramsey Solutions content. And sometimes I'll be like doing dishes, or I'll be like outside doing yard work or whatever. And I remember one day I was listening to a caller and all of a sudden Dave brings you on and you like help navigate peace into a situation that was totally chaotic and somebody wasn't safe and
Oh
it's
yeah, I
not my
remember that.
place.
Yeah.
It's not my place to
Yeah.
go into the details, but I just
Yeah.
remember that kind of and you were able to help somebody find safety both physically, but then really stability in their emotions and in their day-to-day. And I'm curious for us as we prioritize our own mental health, like on the airplane, they always say, and I've never seen this happen, by the way, but they always tell us that if the oxygen masks come down, focus on your own and then help others.
Right.
Right. So as we take that approach as Christian leaders, as pastors, as those who are just committed to the next generation and helping guide others towards mental health from a place of mental health ourselves.
Right.
How can we do that and really lead and direct those we minister towards, Dr. John, towards mental health, holistic health, well-being?
How honest can I be? Can I be
100%
real honest?
Bring it.
Yes.
Many of the pastors that I've worked with privately for the last 20 years have almost pathological God complexes, meaning they feel like they have the responsibility and are in control of other people's actions, other people's destinies, other people's fill in the blank. And it was when I got it through my thick head. As a college professor, I was the same way. As a trauma responder, I was the same way. I thought I could give this person the right thing that they needed and it would solve all their problems. When I realized the only things on planet Earth that I can control are my thoughts and my actions,
Right.
the weight that was lifted from my shoulders, the work has been done. And now it's about how can I not talk a good game, but how can I model what peaceful living looks like? How can, when somebody calls me at 2 a.m. and they just want to talk, I can tell them, I'm with my family. Let's set up a time tomorrow. Because then I'm modeling what boundaries look like. And I'm modeling what priorities look like. And I'm giving somebody, it may not be what they want to hear right then. I'm giving them long-term peace because I'm giving them a picture of what stability and peace, and that's the oxygen mask, right? And so most of us are running around trying to solve everybody else's issues, and we haven't been intentional about what do we actually need where are we right now in our own walk, and what are we modeling for everybody? Because most of us are running around, especially pastors, are modeling chaos, are modeling fights. Let's go fight. We're fighting everybody, and we are modeling. Really, we've gotten kind of sucked into this negative ecosystem.
Yeah.
And man, the kingdom of God is never in trouble. Our little kingdoms might be, but the kingdom of God is always doing just fine. And so it's not my responsibility is to love the person in front of me, not to solve all their problems. And ultimately, like he said, like Jesus says, I see you, I love you, I can play trivia with you. Here's some water. And now, dude, you can live differently. You can go find peace. You don't have to live like this. Not the other way around, which is when you start living right, then I'll give you some water and I'll talk to you. Right. So he goes into that space.
Do you feel like, I mean, I feel like in my own mind, I'm being set free as a pastor, as a leader by some of what you just said of, because the responsibility is not mine. And I mean, is that part of your hope, is that leaders would take a non-anxious approach because the responsibility isn't theirs?
So let me give you an example and I'll tie it back around. When I was obsessed with getting X job title and I was obsessed with making X dollar amount, those were my two goals. And those are not bad goals, but they were very worldly goals.
Sure.
They were very, I need to make this much money and I need to get this job title. What happened over time, and it was a short timeline, I started cutting corners. Because the goal wasn't the journey. The goal wasn't how can I learn more. The goal was I need to get an A. The goal was I need to make this much money. Outcomes. So then I started I'll take another job and another job. I'm suddenly not present at my house, but my house wasn't the goal. The goal is to make money. Or I'm gonna maybe exaggerate my job resume or tell somebody, yeah, I can do that, even though I don't even know what we're doing. Because my goal is to get this money amount. So if my goal is quote unquote winning souls, whatever that, if my goal is getting this many people convicted for Christ, I will emphasize tears. I will emphasize dramatic interpretation. I will emphasize all of these other things to get the conversion or get the notch on my belt, not giving people long-term pictures of what peaceful, godly living looks like. And that is me being under control, me being patient and kind and modeling joy and modeling forgiveness and modeling not getting angry at the news or whatever. Now, all of a sudden, that's a sustainable picture for somebody to follow. So to answer you, yes, if I can get pastors to start taking care of their own marriages and their own mental health and their own physical health and their own relationship with God, dude, people will follow that. You know what I mean? They will follow authenticity.
Yeah.
Right. I'm so glad you went there talking about the God complex and realizing that we're not in control. I think Josiah and myself, like, we love doing ministry, but we said, hey, our job is to point people to Christ and create an opportunity for them, in our home to say yes, to be, invested in a community, to understand the love of God. Like, that is our job as believers, is to disciple people and to point people in that direction. But I can't drag you in that direction. The moment that starts happening, we need to I always tell every girl that I mentor, I go, two things. One, I'm not God. Two, I'm not the Holy Spirit. But I do believe in God and he's a part of my daily life. And I believe that we can team up with the Holy Spirit to get some insight of your situation, your relationship, or whatever they're walking through. But that just removes me from a pedestal they could put me on and eliminates the pressure that I've placed on myself to, I don't know, whether it's perform a certain way, to look a certain way, to relate a certain way. But it's like you had said, it's like, I'm free of that. I've experienced the peace of God and I can turn to him. And I can team up with Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Like, I can team up with that, but I'm just going to point people in the right direction. And if they want to go and come with me, they can, or go. But hey, that is completely up to them. And a lot of our listeners are young adults, whether they're leaders or they're volunteers or they're taking over an existing ministry, or maybe they're tuning in for the first time. I have no idea what they're getting themselves into. But Dr. John, we know that you have a heart for people and this topic specifically, but why do you believe that young adult ministry is important? That age 18 to 30-year-olds, very pivotal stages of life.
If I look at the data, this is just being a scientist for a second. 18 to 30-year-olds, the world shifted underneath their 50 to 70-year-old parents.
Mm-hmm.
And if I think back to my mom in 73, she had to go with, my dad had to be with her to go get a checking account because a woman was not allowed to get a checking account by herself without her dad, or that was a law.
Wow.
And so when I think about the marriage my mom has had with my dad,
Yeah.
that started with, you've got to come with me to get a checking account, all the way to 50 years later now, where she is a tenured professor and a department chair, right? And she is now a PhD professor. So when I look at the world they've inhabited, from the way their food has shifted, the way sleep has shifted, the way my great grandmother, my wife's great grandmother was born in a dugout, a hole in the ground. And in the nursing home, she FaceTimed with my kids on an iPad. To think about that art.
Yep.
And then to think back to 18 to 30-year-olds. We have models of what peace and what relationship and what marriage and what friendship looks like, that is like watching a snow globe being shaken up. And so where adult ministry can be so powerful is it's a new picture of what love looks like, what intentionality looks like, what kindness and forgiveness. I keep going back to those fruits of the spirit, but it's an opportunity to see in real time, oh, I'm loved. And this person is showing me what love looks like. And it doesn't look like yelling or chaos or anger. It looks like, hey, come over to my house for pizza and tacos. I know you're hurting. Right. And we got an extra bedroom. That's what adult ministers can do. And when people want to have hard conversations, in fact, I was just having doing another interview earlier, and something I realized about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, John Calvin and John Wesley and C.S. Lewis and Martin Luther, those were way smarter than me. And Mother Teresa, let's throw in there too. Their brain power was 1,000x mine. So this idea that I'm going to land on this quote unquote right answer on the Bible is nonsense. Those people are so much smarter, and they all had landed in different places. So I'm going to double back to one of my favorite theologian quotes of all time is from Rich Mullins, the famous songwriter, who said, we so often over spiritualize Jesus. I'm going to go look at how he interacted with other people and say, I'm going to start there. Here's a cup of water. Come over to my house and let's tell some jokes, and I'll make sure your needs are taken care of. Let's start there. And that's what young adult ministers can do for people. This untethered generation whose parents did the best they could with the tools they had, but still left a lot of chaos and hurt in the world. Adult ministers can pick up that slack by just providing a stable picture of what comes next.
That's incredible.
What a powerful picture of what could be and what should be and what we get to participate on, and how encouraging.
And that means that young adult ministers have to take care of themselves.
That's good.
They have to.
Wow. What an opportunity. And Dr. John, we'd love to ask a couple rapid fire questions as we wrap up. One,
let's do it.
Keeps us on our toes. And it's, if you could ask us anything, what would you ask us today? We know you're still getting to know us. We're getting to know each other. We'll go deeper.
Well, you want to have fun then?
Let's have fun.
All right. This is for both of you.
Okay.
What's one thing that you would like to do? What's one thing that you would like to do better in your marriage and service of your partner there?
Oh, I think for me right now, we're in a season of 2 kids. I know that Josiah's, one of his love languages is words of affirmation, and just to be more affirming in the words on a regular daily basis that come his way, and that aren't related to the kids, aren't related to serving the kids or the family, but are to him, and to like verbally recognize, I see you, I know that you're doing your very best. And I think that's just one thing, in addition to having a weekly designated date night, even if it's after the kids go to bed. I think that that would just help and strengthen our marriage and serve. And when we do a date night, we always have the other one in mind. So I think of like, what is Josiah's favorite place, you know, to, I don't know, go golfing or to have supper, to have something catered in, like what and where are his favorites. So just to plan those out for me specifically, we usually alternate that. So more intentional, but we're also in a crazy season.
Yeah.
I'll build on that. Like I know Micah mentioned love languages, and hers is quality time. And quality time isn't this or watching a baseball game. It could be watching the playoffs, but it's really like not even just being in the same room. It's kind of eyeball to eyeball. And I think that's been really challenging the past 8 weeks, to find time to not be in the hospital, to just like settle into a new rhythm where no one's crying. and so I think our long-term picture and commitment is making sure that those love languages tanks are filled and those needs are met. And I want.
So you had a great evasive answer, Josiah. What's one thing you want to do? That was a great minister answer. You did a good job there. That was good.
Okay.
That was like
love it.
That was like the Matrix. Like, you did a good job of avoiding the bullets. What's the one thing you would love to lead into more?
Sure.
It could be that same answer, just personalize it.
Okay. I mean, man, I'm sorry, you guys. I was thinking deep on that. I would say to specific, to go deep and personalize it myself. I want to make sure that I get to be the one that meets her emotional needs and her relational needs and her quality time needs, because I heard it said this way: if I don't, Satan will find somebody else who will.
Okay.
Does that help? Is that more specific?
Yeah. So, I mean, you went super, super deep. I was going for level 2. You went for level 7. So what I hear you say is you want to make sure that you're intentional about putting your phone down, and when you can have a distracted free moment with her, you can look her in the eye and say, I see you and I still love you.
Yeah.
Even though there's chaos.
Yeah. And personally and specifically, it's Sundays and it's not being on my phone.
There you go. That's it. Perfect. That's awesome, man. Good
there you go. Now where are we?
So back to you, Dr. John, as we wrap things up. This has been so encouraging and just a meaningful conversation. If you could leave a room of college pastors, young adult ministry leaders, young leaders with one piece of advice, insight, wisdom, or encouragement, you could take it any direction, but the microphone's yours. What would you charge them with?
Doubt, frustration, and feeling the silence of God. All 3 of those things are still holy. And looking at somebody asking you hard questions, especially a young person who's on their way in or on their way out of church, and saying these magic words, I don't know, or even more magic, I changed my mind on this, is, I think, a gift that people are desperate for right now. The idea that everyone's got every answer to every question and we have it all together is, I think, we forget that Jesus was on his face in the garden saying, does it have to be like this? The night before, even Jesus was like, dude, can we do this another way? And as pastors, we feel a burden, or not we, I'm not a pastor, but pastors feel a burden to have every answer to every solution and to be polished. And they feel like if I'm doubting, if I'm having concerns, if I read an article that makes me rethink an issue that I was really firm on, that I shouldn't be doing this. And I want to say, no, that God is in the chaos, and he is in the disconnection, and he's in the frustration, and he's in the tension in your marriage, and he's in your faith doubts too. That may mean that you are exactly where you need to be.
That's so good. That's a great reminder for every leader out there, whether you're a pastor or not, to know that God sees you. He has plans for you. And it's okay to wrestle, and it's okay to have questions. It's okay to say, I don't know. Let's discover it together. And I think when you can come alongside those people who, when you say together, that just makes even more personal to them. Like, yep, you're a person, you're human too. And we don't need to have it all together at all times, right? So Dr. John, thank you so much for allowing us to spend some time with you today. What a great conversation we've had. Thank you all so much for the invite. I'm really grateful for it.
Of course. And if you want to find out more about Dr. John Delony, Ramsey Solutions, and the quick read, Redefining Anxiety, you can click it in the show notes, in the comments below, as well as visit our website at Young Adults Today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have an amazing day.